accepting and learning from failures. Do not forget that any action that promotes cooperation is an action that discourages confrontation. You embarked on a journey beyond elementary solutions with this Stoic method of interpreting the links between experiences to prepare for a harmonious tomorrow. You employ a standard route. Do not forget those who ascend together and are guided by the shared ideals and interests will reach the height of understanding. 5. Appeal to deep values. Visualize yourself sitting under a splendid oak tree which is deeply rooted into the ground. It is highly unrealistic to assume that the oak tree can be displaced by bare force. However, Claire Stoic would appreciate, for instance, the wind and water elements, which can alter something towards its ideals by telling it something. This metaphor portrays the year 110 Stoic method appealing to inner values as a highly effective and as well as a non-violent claim resolution strategy. We seek to convince the buyers not by attacking their character, but rather the fertile ground of their ideas and values. Comprehend and respect their inner compass, and guidance helps develop solutions that are sure to address the nil core issues. This will in turn foster a deeper and more sustained commitment and more. To begin on your path to being a Stoic, I strongly recommend you follow these steps. Start with understanding the value landscape. Assume the role of a value archaeologist and conduct a research before creating a case. What principles do these people follow? What values mold their actions? Pay close attention towards their speech and actions, and note what they claim, reject, or accept. This allows you to create a value-scape map by indicating certain linkages. Next, try to close the value divide. Identify where there is value within the gap. Try to not make overreaching generalizations and accept that their values might differ completely from ours. Seek common ideals. Even when the balance of circumstances seems tipped, you're likely to share mutual respect towards inbuilt values, duty, honesty, and fairness. These shared values serve as links that enable presentation of a case in a more appealing way. Find new ways to tell them what they want to hear. After really understanding their core values, redefine the message you intend to share. Instead of trying to sneak the message past them, speak in a way that interests and shifts their worries. This is how one tells their values without distorting the truth. Finding sympathetic tones allows oneself to be properly understood without having to alter core beliefs. Instead of just dictating, one is meant to present a solution. The images triumph over the whispers. Demonstrate to them how your approach epitomizes their values by using appropriate terminology to illustrate the point. Always provide how anecdotes, previous deeds, or even specific instances show how your strategy addresses the fundamental principles in question. This adds depth to and personalizes your argument. Remember that there is particular etiquette that needs to be followed. Focus on trying to comprehend the person rather than trying to dominate them, which is fundamental to the situation. Understand the premise. You are attempting to aid them towards a solution where your concerns are satisfactorily addressed, but more importantly, your values are not compromised, and seek to dominate them. With the use of this Stoic technique, one transforms into a competent navigator rather than a fighter, wielding a fine-tipped pen instead of a sword, so to say. You guide your opponent into positions and places they can truly charge and believe in. Finally, understand and remember that true transformation, fundamental transformation, stems from resonance with coercion, which this method respects. Rather, it develops mutual respect and understanding, which beneficially opens doors for all parties involved. 6. Conflict resolution is enhanced with humor, but be careful how you use it. Picture yourself riding a unicycle on a very thin wire over a large open chasm. A misplaced pedal can lead to offense, but with the help of a humorous revelation, you stay balanced. Tension-filled situations containing conflict are often alleviated with jokes, which helps to illustrate the metaphor, which is within the philosophical concept, conflict resolution. For starters, who doesn't enjoy laughter? It eases interpersonal tensions and allows for a more amicable environment. It aids in the granting of understanding and alleviates stress when a joke is delivered in a gentle manner. In the words of the Stoic thinker Seneca, there are exceptions to every rule of humor, and those exceptions can easily cultivate serious feelings. It is upon us to use satire with absolute moderation for us to see its full potential. Here are some guidelines for aiding in how to ride the erect comedy bicycle. Know your audience. Remain aware that humor is subjective, so consider which type of cheers are entertained by your opponents, humor style and personality. What are their points of laughter? Which topics do they think might be sensitive? Humor is very circumstantial, and while it might work for one party, it may deeply wound another, so further caution was needed. Make an effort to locate silent happiness rather than lust. Trying to laugh at, and not with, is the aim to not use jokes against someone, and instead employ them how they were meant to be employed. Self-deprecating humor is a much safer bet because it speaks to self-worth and the ability to take responsibility for one's own shortcomings. That timing is very important. First read the room, then read it again. There can be disastrous consequences of using humor incorrectly, and this is one of the worst examples. Measure the emotional level of the situation before indulging in any form of comedy. It's better to hold back until the situation has de-escalated. If the tension is still muscular, be polite and gentle. Do not use sarcasm. Joking about sensitive issues, generalizations, or insults should all be avoided. Remember, the goal is to lay down bridges, not burn them down. Using comedy as an instrument instead of a leaning stick, please refrain from self-medicating by using humor to argue with someone. While it can be very helpful, it is imperative to understand when to employ it. Don't use it on serious topics or issues. Do remember that it should be used judiciously, solely for the purpose of fostering dialogue and easing the situation. Jokes in their most benign form may pose a risk, therefore one should avoid making them when uncertain. And even when jokes do not offend anyone in the room, it only takes a single inappropriate joke or comment on stage during the main event to tarnish reputation, which is hard to rebuild. Using Stoic principles with humor including may rather become an appropriate strategy for getting to know people, alleviating stress, and expanding the space for resolving conflicts without risk of overstepping. Remember that laughter, when applied in the right context, does not tear apart. Instead, it heals relationships that are tense and molds them into chances for understanding and resolving the difficulties at hand. 7. Exhibiting empathy truly helps. Imagine you are on a really rough mountain path and are peering over a crevice at another climber who appears to be on a different trail. Their fury and frustration seem to be echoing through the valley like a storm. Rather than zeroing arguments into the abyss, the calm method would be to slowly start to climb down, close the gap, and offer an understanding hand. This is the important aspect of the seventh tactic, which is the Stoic way of demonstrating empathy. For empathy enables one to resolve conflict in a better way, even during the most difficult of disagreements. Since Marcus Aurelius states, we can indeed connect and open the door to a more temperate, reasonable conversation by validating everyone's feelings, and lived experience. This is how you master this power of Stoicism. Be ready to change the outlook from me to the other person. Endeavor to understand what the world looks like through their eyes. Try to put yourself in their shoes instead of focusing strictly on yourself. What do you think could be triggering their emotions? What are the fears or worries that could be driving them? This shift in perspective fosters the ability to empathize and see the other side. Take note of these words above. Try to listen to the words that are unsaid as well. In the process of fitting in, it is important to consider what is being said as well as what is not being said, such as how an individual uses their body, the tone in which they speak, their facial expressions, and what actually comes out of their mouth. To understand how a message is put across and what the response to it must be is crucial. Such things often reveal feelings that the person's words have covered up. Attempt to listen without making judgments and strive to comprehend. Appreciate, do not condemn. Protect their feelings instead of their actions. Even if you do not see eye to eye with them, ensure that you are showing empathy to their feelings. I understand why this situation is of great relevance to you, or it seems you are dissatisfied, are phrases that boost trust while lowering the defensive mechanism. Search for the concealed suffering. Search for the root of the conflict. The surface emotion of anger and irritation could stem from an even deeper emotional wound. Try and unearth areas of potential pain, fear, or lack of confidence. Increasing one's understanding as to what the core problem is addresses the problem instead of masking the symptoms and fosters compassion. Keep in mind that gratitude does not equate to endorsement. Scott's idea of empathy focuses on those who do not agree with him. As with any truly empathetic person, they usually start off on the other side of the divide with their counterparts, as he did with his adversaries. Yes, considering someone else's viewpoint does not translate into accepting them, adopting their views, or forsaking one's own values. Rather, it means actively seeking their perspective and creating a climate that opens the door for honest conversations. Disagree, do not judge. Never id yourself as a judge to a person's misunderstandings. Rather, confront it with some respect and compassion. Scott views this act as creating a connection which is much stronger than simply filling the gap that exists due to mutual disagreements and conflict. If you can follow Scott's example, the world would be much better. Have the courage to descend from the superior moral ground and allow yourself to offer the gift of empathy. You can create a world full of hope by trying to understand their outlook rather than passing judgment. With Scott, one can hope to create an understanding approach and build relations in a constructive manner. Who knows, you can get on an adventure of a lifetime with Scott. 8. Appreciate the importance of compromise. Imagining a gigantic and robust oak tree, its capricious limbs being battered around by the winds, I figured that it would require tremendous strength to manipulate the oak, but that would only bring damage to both the tree and yourself. Not putting so much effort into the situation would let us follow a far more effective solution that stems from Stoic philosophy to understand the principle of compromise. This strategy includes adapting, bending, and finding a way in which there can be coexistence between the oak and the wind. Outcomes in hard views and absolutes often do not result in successful conflict resolution. Epictetus claimed, "Wish not to have things happen as you wish, but rather wish them to happen as they do, and you shall live a tranquil life." The ability to determine solutions that at least fulfill some of the needs of the problem's opposer is true greatness. This is how one could practice this Stoic skill. Instead of saying me, say we. Redefine the conflict as a joint